Today we're going to take a look at what each killer's inspiration is and what they are based on, starting with the Trapper. It's obvious that the Trapper is heavily inspired by the king of slashers, Jason Voorhees, as they both have an iconic mask that represents them well, the hockey mask for Jason and a bone smiley mask for Trapper. And despite Jason having used various weapons in his movies, the most iconic one is a machete, just like the Trapper. Not only that, but lore-wise, Jason is a mommy's boy, following Pamela Voorhees' orders, and Trapper did the same with his more abusive dad, Archie Macmillan. Jason has only used bear traps in his remake 2010 movie and in the Friday the 13th game, so aside from that there's not much connection. The Wraith is in my opinion the most interesting character, having 3 possible inspirations, the most notable being the Nayenesgani, a hero from Navajo mythos who slain monsters and enemies, and as you can see by this picture their resemblance is very strong, as Wraith also uses a mask and a lot of tribal motifs with his addons for example. Not only that, but the Wraith is possibly inspired by the concept of the Grim Death, announcing his presence with a wailing bell and with his weapon of choice being a scythe, the weapon that Death is more known for. The Wraith has also been killing many people unknowingly according to his lore, so he's an executioner of some sorts. Finally, the Wraith could take some slightly inspiration in the Predator, and I'm not talking about his unique perk, but the Alien Hunter, as they both have access to invisibility as well as they take the head and spine of their victims as trophies. The Hillbilly's behaviors take on Leatherface. One old fact that most veterans know is that the hook idea from DVD comes from the first movie of Texas Chain Massacre, and so Hillbilly is a homage to one of the most iconic killers in horror media. They are so similar that when Leatherface was first released, they both shared most of their add-ons. The nurse from DVD takes heavy inspiration from the common monsters known as the nurses in Silent Hill. They both have almost the same identical physical look, the only difference that the nurse floats in DVD, and also that the nurses from Silent Hill do movements similar to the spirit. The map itself, the asylum, is also very inspired in Silent Hill, as before the rework, the walls were all burnt and gritty, just like when you go to the other world in the original games. Hag is Dead by Daylight's take on a Wendigo, a folkloric creature from indigenous mythos that is basically an evil spirit that manifests once a human commits cannibalism, exactly what the Hag did after getting rid of her imprisonment. Visually, the Hag also takes a lot of inspiration from bog hags and hags in general due to their use of magic symbols and add-ons. Maybe also a slight inspiration in zombies, but that's not for sure. The Huntress is an interesting character, having most inspirations taken from Russian folklore, and the song that she is singing is actually a real Russian lullaby that is translated to the Wolf Lullaby. Her visual design could be inspired by the movie Jackals or the Splicers from Bioshock. However, Trapper originally had a bunny mask, so I believe that the Huntress is actually just a recreation of the original idea in the prototype of DVD. In the archives lore, she's also called a Bodark, which is the Russian version of a werewolf creature. The Doctor is really cool as he's actually inspired by a real person, Yang Yongqing, who was a controversial doctor that advocated for the use of electrotherapy in order to cure people from addiction to video games. Originally, the Doctor was going to be Chinese with a Chinese version of the Laris map, and that is why Feng Ming also comes with this DLC, an addicted to video games esports player. I will make a future video about this topic, so if you're enjoying this video, I would greatly appreciate if you click the thumbs up button and commented if you think any of the killers are inspired by another thing that I missed. Thank you in advance. Returning back to the Doctor, his visual design is strongly similar to the Surgeon from the movie franchise Hellraiser. Clown is behavior's take on the horror genre of killer clowns. However, there's a very clear and dark inspiration of a real-life serial killer, but I won't delve into who he is or what he did just in case YouTube decides to hit me with demonetization. But you can find more about him in my comment down below, where I will link a Wikipedia article about him. Just a heads up, it's disturbing. The spirit is an onryo, a vengeful spirit in a Japanese folklore who he addresses the wrongs that were done to them in their living life by vengeance on the real world full of anger and rancor. The horror movie The Grudge is the same concept. The spirit's death is the reason why she is full of wrath and anger towards her father and will kill anyone on her way in order to kill him. The Legion could be based on typical edgy teenager horror like Jeff the Killer or the movie The Purge. However, there is also a theory where the Legion was behavior's attempt at a killing inspired by the movie Scream, where everyone wears the Ghostface mask in order to commit crimes and killings and nobody knows who the killer is. Legion is one of the killers that could be perfectly realistic if transferred to the real life. A lot of killers in horror media have the same idea as Legion, a person with a knife and mask, so it's not something very original. The Plague is Behavior's take on a mix of body horror and fanatism, being the first and possibly only killer who is very religious. Her clothing and addons are inspired by the old land of Babylon in Mesopotamia, and she could also take some inspiration from old mummies. However, I would say the Plague is a very original idea and concept. The Oni is literally an Oni, another creature from Japanese folklore which is basically a demon ogre. Their depiction is usually with a red skin, a tiger cloth, and a kanabo, which is the weapon used by Kazan during his demon dash, but the outfit he uses is just a samurai armor because, as the lore states, Kazan was just a samurai who hated being called an Oni. Now, the Deathslinger is a very unusual character for a horror game based on the horror western genre and heavily inspired by the steampunk aesthetic, which can be seen with his weapon, his leg brace, and the exit gate switches in Dead Dog Saloon. Aside from that, visually he's simply a bounty hunter with the most typical clothing an expert bounty hunter would wear in the Old West. There are jokes about how Caleb actually looks like Mika from Red Dead Redemption 2, but I guess it's just a coincidence. The Blight is a very cool killer taking inspiration from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, an old school horror literature which was the same concept, a scientist who transforms into a devious monster. I like the visual design of the Blight a lot because I think he would be the best killer that fits in Scooby-Doo. Visually, the Blight is shown completely destroyed by the Portrait Serum, just like the outfits from the Halloween Blight, which was a Halloween event that included a lot of customization options for lots of killers in the past. I think that he is one of the most visually and lore interesting characters from the game. The Twins is Behavior's take on the creepy twins movie trope with a French medieval twist. Visually, she looks just like a typical peasant from the Dark Age, just with a massive gaping hole where her brother Victor is. Originally, this killer was going to be a mother with her unborn child, but they decided to take a different approach on this idea, most likely because of how gruesome it would be. Comment down below if you have any more ideas on what the twins could be based on. The Trickster is another very unique choice for a horror game, and he's literally inspired by K-pop. Behavior even had help from Kevin Wu, a real-life K-pop artist who helped them make Jiwoon and Yoonjin more K-pop. However, despite that, his power has nothing to do with K-pop, and also there are no themes explored in his lore regarding the dark side of this industry, making it so that if we change Trickster's music genre, his lore would still make sense, which is kinda sad. There are some rumors that he's also very inspired in Jared Leto's take on the Joker from Suicide Squad. Just imagine the Joker throwing cards instead of neon knives. Finally, for now, we have the Artist, a very interesting killer. She's inspired by the trope of a mad artist, or an artist that sees the beauty in grim, dark themes. But the most interesting part of her is how she takes so much inspiration from birds in her movements and sounds. Take her normal idle stance, where she moves her head just like a bird would do, and she screeches like one too because of her lack of a tongue. In her mori, before coming down to a survivor, she flaps her arms just as if she was flying with her wings. And finally, and the most interesting part is her pallet breaking animation. First, I didn't like it because I thought it was a very weird and maybe there was some Dan Schrader or Quentin Tarantino thing going on with the feet, but actually she breaks the pallet just like a secretary bird stomp in order to hunt, and I think that makes her look really cool. Visually, she has some body horror elements which make her one of the only killers in my opinion who gives a hard feeling of uncanny valley, making her, for me at least, one of the creepiest killers in the game. If you have noticed already, I skipped all licensed characters from this vid. If you found this interesting and would like to see more, support this channel and subscribe, and soon I will release another part, but this time talking about every single licensed character, their perks and mori, and from which movie they were taken. Thank you for watching till the end, have a nice day, and remember to drink some water too.